Hello, basketball fans. It's me, DC, here for the Week 3 preview to get you ready to set your fantasy basketball lineups. We're going to start it off how we always do by looking at the pace and defensive efficiency. Let's bring it up. As a reminder, I pull my defensive efficiency stats from Cleaning the Glass. It's a great website if you want to check it out. Part of why I do it is they cut off garbage time, and I think it gives us better numbers so that we can kind of more so what we could expect, because garbage time can really skew things. If you're playing all of your bench or the other team's playing the bench, it will really change your defensive efficiency at the end when people are, gaining against the scrubs, if you will. All right, if we take a look at this grid, there are definitely some big changes from last week. They may not jump out at you if you can't compare them side by side, but I talked about last week in depth at the end of the video. It's a small sample size, and so we were expecting changes, right? Overall, for defensive efficiency, if you step back far enough, not that crazy of a change. Last week, the average for a team was 108. Now it's 107. So defensive efficiency actually went down a little bit, but the extremes really got cut out. So last week, the lowest any team had was Atlanta with an 82 and Miami with an 85. Lowest being good. This is a really good defensive rate. Now Atlanta shifted from their 82 to 102. It's because it's such a small sample size, right? So there are some factors, but we're getting better data. People are still going to move. There's still a little bit of sketch. Let's go ahead and look at this. At the top, the pace and defensive efficiency. Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Milwaukee, Houston, Memphis are at the top, most desirable teams to attack. That kind of makes sense for most of it. Like, I think OKC, Houston, we're expecting bad teams in general to be up there. Orlando's up there, but they're not a fast pace. These numbers kind of make sense to me. 93 pace, but they're being dragged up by not being great at defense. That makes sense, but they are a slower paced team, so they probably won't be in the top 5 all season long. It's something to consider. Also, depending on your superstars and blowouts, maybe they rest a little bit against Orlando, but we're not playing like what football does, where they're like, the game script, they're going to be ahead or they're going to be catching up. I know they're going to run the ball. That's not what we're doing in basketball. We're just trying to look for some predictable metrics for, hey, I expect someone's going to have a really good game against Detroit because they do X, Y, Z, or I'm actually not afraid of Milwaukee despite them having a strong defense because they play really fast. That gives us a lot of opportunities for steals, blocks, rebounds, putting shots up because they're playing at a faster pace, right? It's worth noting, I just said pace, that none of the bottom 5, like the 5 slowest teams in pace right now, none of them were in the bottom 5 last week. So that is how much it's shifting. In fact, Miami is in the bottom 5 right now at 92.3. Last week, they were in the top 5 at 108. So we're at week 3. The data's a little better. It'll get a little better after this. At the bottom for teams we don't want to match up against currently, Miami, Denver, Toronto, Clippers, Dallas. Portland's just on that edge there, and that surprised me a little bit. I would expect Portland's pace to be a little bit higher, and that I think they should be middle of the pack, if not top. So I'm surprised to see them down there. I'm pretty skeptical about that, but this is what the numbers are right now. Last week, Portland was the very top team you wanted to face with an average of 113. Now they've come down to 99. This is just too wild a fluctuation. But Miami, this is interesting. So they have the best defensive efficiency in the league right now, and one of the slower paces of play means it's not a desirable matchup, and that makes sense. Their defense is playing really well. It is worth noting, though, that there's maybe a little bit of fool's gold in here. One of the things that's working well for Miami is opponents' three-point shooting percentage against them is in the bottom 3 in the league. All threes going up against Miami are getting 29%. The only teams lower are Minnesota at 28 and Utah at 25. Now, all 3 of those teams I'm mentioning are in the best defenses, right? The bottom 5 defenses we'd want to face. And with Minnesota, they've got the 105 pace, but the 97 defensive rating. This might be a little bit of a fluke because the defensive, three-point shooting, we've studied it. It's come up in other years. If I've talked about it, like Milwaukee's defensive style, they intentionally allow certain 3 points, right? They try and cover the corner 3, but if you don't want to come into the lane, they'll let you jack up a bunch of threes to some extent. And that's, all defenses are going to like give something up and lock down on something else. That's what Milwaukee's style has been over years. And as we look at it, you don't really affect the other team's 3-point percentage too much. Now, you can have weaknesses like being bad at covering the corner three, and that could be a sign of really bad defense, but not necessarily the impact on their shooting percentage. So they all kind of will start to average back to the mean of what you expect a player to be doing against this team. And so maybe Minnesota, and Miami, who I was really talking about, but maybe this 3-point percentage changes a little bit. I still think Miami's defense is strong, and so it probably stays down here. They're probably one of the 5 teams we're going to see towards the bottom all year. Slower pace and a good defense. But I'm curious because I'm hoping Minnesota took a step forward on defense. I would like it for Timberwolves fans and for the team to take that next step. When you watch them, it looks like there's more effort being played there. And that's why I'm kind of like went off on a tangent about Minnesota, because I'm curious to be tracking that. Since I talked about opposing 3-point percentage, the teams with the worst rates right now for the top 4, Dallas is in there. Okay. Detroit, Memphis, surprised me a little. And the number 1 team to shoot 3-pointers against right now is Phoenix at 43% of all 3-point shots are going in. That's what I mean by it's not all inclusive, right? I can't say like Phoenix is clearly the worst, the former finals team. And so I'm not saying make decisions based on putting those threes in. I'm just trying to give why some of this defensive stats might not match our expectations. All right, getting into how this affects our week 3, we took these numbers and we went ahead and applied it to our weekly schedule. Now, the big thing anytime we're looking at the weekly schedule is how many games are teams playing, because that's going to make the biggest difference, right? 16 teams play 4 games, which is the ideal, which leaves us with 14 of them playing 3. Pretty even match, which is nice because that means if you do have to play a 3-game week, you're not taking as much of a hit with that player as other times because it's fairly even. It's not like when we see 20-10 or something like that. No one's got a 2-game week, but it's worth noting next week we do have 2 teams coming up with 2-game weeks, Orlando and the Wizards, which means they're probably pretty unusable next week. They are usable in your weekly lock leagues with the exception of, a healthy Beal or something. But just be aware of that for next week. Right now, schedule-wise, if you've only got 3 games, if you're looking for great matchups, Denver stands out. They get Memphis, Houston. Fast-paced games. Houston's not great. So as far as a week, they've got like green lights all across, even though I love the Grizz. I'm not crapping on them, but that's what the numbers are telling us right now. It's still week 3. I don't want this to impact you too much when you're making like weekly decisions. But if you're playing DFS and looking for straight like matchups of where you can capitalize on it, I think this can be interesting. But let's go ahead and talk more nitty-gritty about how to help you set your fantasy lineups. Let's talk about the back-to-backs. So to start off the week, there are no Monday, Tuesday back-to-backs, which is a little interesting. But if you're trying to save some moves, we're putting out this video on Saturday. If you're taking notice, Charlotte and Portland, I've got only 1 game flag there as a back-to-back. That's because they're actually rolling in from back-to-back Sunday into this week. So if you've got moves left right now and want to pick someone up for either Portland and Charlotte, if you've got the lead and you're just looking for some games, you might be able to grab a Trailblazer and have them on your lineup, use the 1 game on Monday, and then get going. Now, Monday's not a great streamable day, so maybe this doesn't matter, but I wanted to make note. You'll see that at the start of the week and at the end, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Sacramento, and the Knicks. These teams have a back-to-back rolling into the next week. So sometimes if you've got limited, say you've got 5 waiver moves you're allowed to do per week or something like that, you can use this if you've got a good win in your head-to-head to carry into the next week for it. Also, we've got a little more data. I always want to talk about guys that rest on back-to-back. I'm trying to track it. Horford, Boston's been saying that he's going to play back-to-backs. Horford's actually playing. He's healthy. Good for him. But on the 24th and 25th, there's a back-to-back. He didn't play a game. So I'm going to keep watching this. We'll watch in midweek this week, see if that keeps up. In the past, he's rested. And if that's what it takes for the team to win, okay, fine. But we need to know it, right? Russ in the past has rested. He played in a back-to-back already, and he played a lot. He played like 40 minutes. He was going against OKC. Maybe it's because of OKC, going back to his old team and wanting to be there and playing it. But we'll just track it. The Lakers might just need him because they don't have the bench depth that they once did. Durant played back-to-backs. Harden played back-to-backs, which I feel like is an of course statement, but last year it wasn't always the case. Kemba hasn't had a back-to-back yet. He's another guy who's traditionally sat on back-to-back. So I'm going to track it. So the only person we've seen right now stand out that we're going to be like leery of back-to-backs is Horford. And then we'll keep tracking. If there's guys you're noticing that are doing this, let me know. I'll add them to the list. But I think I kind of have my hands around what we're talking about with that. Otherwise, you can look at the back-to-backs. Let's go ahead and talk about the streaming. It's a pretty great week for streaming. We've got 3 days that we can really attack. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday have 5, 5, and 6 games. That's a really low volume day where you can try and get some guys in. And there's at least 5 teams that are playing multiple games on these days where you can really go after it. The best of it is Utah. They've got a 4-game week overall. They play 3 streaming days, and it's the back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. Which, even that, Sunday's only got 8 games, so it's right there at about half, so sometimes you can make a little work. So Utah, I think, is the best, and Houston's there too. Same idea. They've got 3 streaming days, and then they play again on Sunday, so you kind of see what you get. There are also some interesting matchups. Utah gets Sacramento and Atlanta. You don't want Miami. We already talked about them, right? And then Houston, the Lakers' defense hasn't been great, so I'm not super afraid of it, right? Phoenix, Denver's defense, rating-wise, is a stay away. And then Golden State, which plays a fast enough pace that you're okay attacking. Again, I know I said it. I'm not trying to waste your time by bringing that up. Those are the impacts that will matter more as the season goes on, but the data is a little screwy. So I do recommend kind of making gut decision calls there on some of that. But Utah and Houston are going to be the best for streaming if you can pick up some guys. So it might be worth looking at, is Eric Gordon out there? Do you want to grab him just for the streaming potential? We'll talk about it a little more when we do our waiver show for Sunday release. The next tier of great streaming teams, Lakers, Miami, Phoenix. They all also play on 3 streaming days. They just only have 3 games total. So if you're trying to minimize your moves and maximize your amount of games play, Utah and Houston tops, Lakers, Miami, Phoenix next. And then there's some spot plays in between. I've highlighted everyone in yellow who has those games those days, so you can take a look. But like Chicago only has 3 games. They get Philly on one of the streaming days. It's probably just not the best way to use those. And that's going to do it for a quick week 3 preview. I got to get out of here and get dressed for the family Halloween costume because trick-or-treating is on Saturday night around here in my neighborhood. So we got to go do the face paint and all that crap. Thanks for watching. Leave questions, comments below. If you've got someone standing out on the defense thing that you disagree with, let's talk about it. That's actually talking about hoops, and I love it. It's not just using the numbers. So let's get into it. I'll be back tomorrow to help you with some waivers to get you ready to win your week. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below. It helps me grow the channel. If you want more videos like this, hit subscribe or even the little bell will give you alerts. And I'll be back soon with another video for you.